من الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. We got last time we began speaking about the book of Najasat, and we talked about a number of them. The last thing that we talked about was the dead animals from the sea and whether they're considered najas or not. And we talked about all the opinions of the ulama about that. And we said that the strongest opinion is that anything that's dead from the sea is considered Tâhir, and that the strongest opinion also is that anything that's dead from the sea is considered edible, except for a few things that we'll get into when we actually get into the topic of food and drink. So we'll leave those for until then. But as a general rule, any dead animal that comes from the sea is considered Tâhir and considered permissible to eat. So the next thing that the author talks about, he says dead animals that have no running blood. So this would include things like locusts or things like ants or bees or things like that. And the reason why this is relevant is if someone, for example, killed one of these and then had the residue of it on his body, or the actual animal on his body or the insect on his body, would he be able to pray in this situation or not? This is the the discussion. And if an insect or something like that fell into someone's drink or someone's food, does it wreck that food or not? So this is the relevance of this discussion. So the author says, dead animals that have no running blood, that is bees, ants, and so on, they're considered pure. If they fall into some substance and die, the substance will not become impure. Ibn al-Mundhir said, I do not know of any disagreement concerning the purity of such water, except what has been related from a Shâfi'í. It is well known that he views them as being impure. Nevertheless, it does not bother him if the object falls into a substance and does not alter it in any way. So here he's Ibn al-Mundhir, you'll find very often that he, anytime it comes to discussion about differences of opinion, very often it will be Ibn al-Mundhir that will mention it, because he was very interested, or very he took a lot of effort in gathering all the different opinions about different topics and then discussing them and then finding out which was the strongest, and which things there was an agreement upon and which things there were disagreements upon. So this is why Ibn al-Mundhir is very often mentioned. And here when he says Ash-Shafi'i considered them to be impure, but if they fell into a substance, it wouldn't alter it. This goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, or the first or second lesson, that when it comes to najasa, if it falls into something, that thing that it falls into doesn't become najas unless it actually changes it, and it takes on one of the characteristics of the najasa. So either the smell, the taste, or the color. So this is why. So even though he considered it najas, he said that if it fell into one of a substance, it wouldn't change it or wouldn't make it unusable, and thus it changes it. So just to comment a bit on what the author said, there's three opinions on the things that are animals that don't have running blood when they die, whether they're considered najas or Tâhir. The first is that they're considered Tâhir unrestrictedly, so it doesn't matter whether they die, it doesn't matter what they come from. So if it's something that has come out of something najas, or if it's come out of something that is Tâhir. So if it's some sort of insect or some sort of worm or something like that comes out of a fruit, or that comes out of a vegetable, or comes out of the ground, or if it's something that comes out of a najasa, they say regardless if this thing is dead, it's considered Tâhir. So this is the first opinion. That's the opinion of the Ahnâf and the Mâlikiyyah and the Shâfi'iyyah, or some of the Shâfi'iyyah and the Hanbalis. And again, what they mention, what they say for this is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about the bees, when he said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about honey and the benefits of honey, or the cure that he placed in honey, and then he spoke about it, that it comes from within inside the bees. So the fact that this is something that's come out of their body, but it's still considered Tâhir, and it's actually that he placed cure in it, so they use this as evidence. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, speaking about what he taught the bees, so inherently placed inside of the bees, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ثُمَّ كُلِي مِنْ كُلِّ الثَّمَرَاتِ فَاسْلُكِي سُبُلَ رَبِّكَ ذُلُلًا. يخرج من بطونها شراب مختلف ألوانه فيه شفاء للناس. Or that he said, then eat of all fruits and follow the ways of your Lord made easy. There comes forth from their bellies a drink of varying color, wherein there is healing for men. And this is from Surah An-Nahl, verse 69. And the Prophet ﷺ said, إذا وقع الذباب في شراب أحدكم فليغمسه ثم لينزعه فإن في إحدى جناحيه داء وفي الآخر شفاء وفي الأخرى شفاء. Or from Abu Hurairah that the Prophet ﷺ said, if a fly falls into the drink of any of yours or any of you, then let him dunk it in and then take it out. Because in one of its wings there is a poison, and one of its wings there is a cure. And this is narrated by Al-Bukhârî and others. And then they mention some other weak ahadith from the Prophet ﷺ that aren't really usable. So that's the extent, I guess, of what these people say or use for their evidence. So they state that since the Prophet ﷺ ordered us to, if a fly or something falls into someone's drink, to dunk it in. So if it was something that was considered najas, then it wouldn't have been. The Prophet ﷺ wouldn't have ordered us to do this. And they also mention the verse about the mayta, which we talked about many times before. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He's telling us what is considered najas, and He said, أَوْ دَمًا مَسْفُوحًا, or that it's blood that's poured forth. So we know if you slaughter an animal for food, the blood that gushes out of its neck, that part is considered najas, but the rest of the blood that stays in the animal, when we're eating it or cooking it or preparing the meat, this is considered Tâhir. So they say that if the najas part of the blood is what comes out when it gushes after it's been slaughtered or sacrificed, then if the animal doesn't have any blood gushing out to begin with, then there's no reason for it to be najas to begin with, because if you were to cut a worm in half, nothing comes gushing out of it. It keeps moving. And if you stomp on an ant or a bee or most insects, nothing really comes out of it. And if something does, it doesn't come gushing out as it would with like if you hit something with your car, or if you slaughtered something, or if you shot something while you're hunting, and that the effects of killing this animal are completely different. So they state that because it doesn't have this gushing blood, which is what's mentioned in the verse as being one of the najas things, then there's no reason for it to be considered najas. The second opinion is that it's considered najas, and they state that if it comes from something tahir and dies in it, then it does not make it najas. So they have some difference of opinion on how it affects certain things, and this is the opinion of the Shâfi'iyyah. And they use the verse about the mayta. So they say, well, this is something that's dead. It's something that was alive and now it's dead. So there's no difference between this and, for example, a dead sheep or a dead bird or a chicken or whatever. I mean, all these things, once they die and they haven't been slaughtered the Islamic way, then they're considered najas. So they use the same evidences for that. So that's the second opinion. And then the author also mentioned a hadith. He says from Ibn Abbas that Maymuna, from the Prophet ﷺ, that was asked about a mouse that would fall into a pot of clarified butter. So this would be so there's a solid butter which was taken. Obviously, when you make butter, you take it off of the milk, and then it becomes hard eventually once it cools. Then if a mouse he was asked about a mouse that would fall into this. So the Prophet ﷺ said, take out the mouse and take out what's around it. So they say that this is, the Prophet ﷺ wanted you to take out what this dead animal had touched, because it had made it najas, because it's dead. So they state that, so this is something it was a live animal, and we would have gushing blood. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ ordered for it to be taken out. But everything else that wouldn't be resembling of this, then it wouldn't be ordered to be taken out. And then there's also another opinion that is that if it came from something tahir, then it's tahir, and if it came from something najas, then it's najas. So if it came from it was a fruit fly or a worm that came out of fruit or something like that, then they would be considered tahir. And if it came out of najasa, then it would be considered something najas. And what they use for this is the rule of istihala, which is if something is najas and you do something to it to change it into another form, then would it become tahir or not? So for example, if there's a dead animal and then you lit it on fire and turned it into ash, would this be considered najas still or not? The strongest opinion is it would be considered tahir, because it's if we say, well, this animal was najas because it was a dead animal, it's no longer a dead animal, it's something completely different, it's ash now, as opposed to, so that's what they say, that if it came from something najas, then it's najas because this animal has now actually come out of najasa, it's being made by najasa, or its actual being is something that was made up of najasa as opposed to something tahir. And Allahu alam, from these opinions, the strongest opinion is that they're considered tahir, because there's no clear evidence to say that they're najas, and also there's evidence that the thing, when we slaughter an animal, the reason why it's made tahir or it's made pure is because of the blood that gushes out of it. Because there's certain hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ has explained that if something is made tahir because the blood had gushed out of it, and so meaning if the blood had stayed in it after it was dead, then this is what makes it najas. So if there's an animal that blood wouldn't even come out from the to begin with, then this shows that the reason for other animals being considered najas when they're dead isn't present in this. So does that make sense to everyone? It's a little bit complicated, I know, but if we had a cow and then it just died of natural causes, the ahadith kind of explain that the reason why this is considered najas is because that blood hasn't gushed out of the body, and it's just animal that this blood has stayed stagnant inside this body. But when you slaughter it, then it becomes tahir because this has left the body. So if there's an animal that doesn't even have that blood to begin with, and it dies, well then the reason why we say other things are najas isn't present in these animals.
Sheikh, so it's like kind of we shift focus, because when we talk about khanzir, we usually refer to the lahm as najis. So in these we're talking about the blood, that's
more to do with the blood and then the animal itself. Like, so say you were praying and you hit a fly and it stayed on your clothes. You have to go take it off now, or can you just leave it there, or if the residue from this animal's there or not, that type of thing. So it has more to do, like the pig in and of itself, every aspect of it is considered najas, like we talked about.
Yeah, exactly. But like like when we're talking about insects and flies and locusts, we're always looking at the gushing blood.
Yeah, because that's why they say they consider these animals that have no running blood, even though technically they have blood, but it's not something that if you slaughtered it would come gushing out, or if you stepped on it, like it keeps coming out until the heart stops beating. Like it's a different type of substance that's inside the body.
So it's considered tahir all the time then?
That's, to me, this seems the strongest opinion.
But then, for example, like a cow, if it dies of some cause and the blood doesn't come out, it's najas. But if, like let's say it gets hit by something and the blood starts coming out, then it's tahir. It's
still considered najas, and the reason because it hasn't been slaughtered the Islamic way. So there's two ways, there's two conditions for it to be considered tahir: that the blood comes out and that it's slaughtered the proper way. So just like if we say there was an apostate or a murtad that slaughtered some meat, slaughtered a cow, we'd still say it's najis. We can't eat it, even though he slaughtered it, because that second condition isn't there. But the physical reason of what makes it tahir is the blood leaving the body. But it also needs that second condition.
So sorry, just a side note.
Yeah.
So this whole issue about like eating halal meat and stuff, that kind of solves it, right there, right?
In what way?
Like how the people say, like for example, I can go eat my food at McDonald's.
Yeah, yeah.
This issue solves it right now, right? Because if it's not decided the Islamic way, then it's considered najis. You can't eat it.
As a rule, yeah. I mean, we'll get into, is it sufficient that you don't know whether it was done Islamically or not, and we know that by name the majority of the people here say that they're Christian. Is that sufficient? Like those are some other issues that come into the issue about eating the meat.
Sorry,
that's okay.
About the fly, so where the hadith said one wing is poisonous and one could have like that.
Yeah.
I mean the so and said dunk it in the water, right? So can you drink it if it's confusing for me.
Yeah, you dunk it in and then take it out and then you just continue with it like you're allowed.
You dunk
and then you throw and then you take the fly out and then you just continue.
Why do you dunk it in?
To make sure that both have been in.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
So context?
Smart.
Yeah, it's in Bukhari.
Smart.
Okay, if the bee has blood,
Yeah.
but it's not maybe the way it's structured, the blood can't flow out.
Yeah.
Right? So wouldn't that be the opposite of what you said? Because the fact that the blood flows out of the animal is what makes it tahir, right?
Uh-huh.
So then if it can't flow or doesn't flow out, then it should be tahir. I mean, najas, shouldn't it?
That's what's in it.
That's one of the opinions. They say, well,
doesn't that make more sense or no? Like, why would you choose the other?
if we say that it's the flowing blood staying in the body that should have went out, that's what makes it najas.
Yeah.
But if the other one actually doesn't have that same circulatory system as the other one, so it wouldn't
And
flow out
that's
anyway.
Another topic in itself. Like, it's a total different kind of species than
Exactly. So that's what they say, because it doesn't have this. We can't really apply the rules of that. Well, this is dead. We can't use the evidence for example, like a dead livestock, and apply it to insects because they're completely different animals.
Exactly.
And
So they say, first of all, the evidence that you're using is referring to animals that are a lot more not evolved, but you know what I mean, like are more complex.
Different, yeah.
And so that's the first thing. So the evidence you're using about if it's flowing blood or if it's khinzir or if it's dead meat, that it's not applicable to begin with. Plus, we know that the reason that these things become najas is because the blood that should flow out of them didn't flow out. So if this one shouldn't have blood flowing out of it anyway, so that blood that would flow out wouldn't come out of it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a different type of blood. So that the blood staying stagnant when it should have went out isn't present because it shouldn't go out to begin with. I mean,
there's no way for it to come out anyways.
It's not the type that would come out. You know what I mean?
Even if it was to come out, it's so little, it's insignificant in a way.
I mean,
Yeah.
You
You
would never
wouldn't even
tell.
know.
Yeah.
You can never tell, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, you're first.
Which opinion is this? Whose opinion is this?
That it's najas?
Yeah.
It's the Shafi'i, some of the Shafi'is.
And Mâlikiyyah or no? Just the Shafi'i?
The animal. So?
So the next category that he mentions, he says bones, horns, claws, fur, feathers, and skin of dead animals. He says all of these are considered pure, and just we should take out of this the skin because that's a separate issue. We'll talk about it after.
So if you said bones,
Horns, claws, feathers, fur, and skin.
We said about the skin should be tanning, right?
Yeah. So like we said, if it's a dead animal. If you make the dhabh for it, it's considered tahir. If you find the dead animal or it's from someone who's not Muslim or Ahl Kitâb and you kill it, it's considered najas until you do the dibagh. The dibagh or the tanning.
Tanning the skin.
So
that would make it tahir, yeah. So the author says all of these are pure, and then he says قال الزهري في عظام الموتى نحو الفيل وغيره أدركت ناس من سلف العلماء يمتشطون بها ويدهنون فيها لا يرون به بأسا. Or that he says from az-Zuhri that he said concerning the bones of dead animals such as elephants and the like, az-Zuhri said, I have met some scholars of the preceding generations who used to use objects for combs and for pots for oil, and they did not see anything wrong with that. And he says this is related by Al-Bukhârî. So just to comment on that, it's related by Al-Bukhârî in mu'allaq form. So he didn't actually narrate it with a chain of narration. So he would say as Zuhri said, and then he would put the thing. He didn't actually mention the full chain of narration. But
it's still authentic.
It says by the group.
No, Al-Bukhârî.
It says this is related by the group.
that's the next thing, right?
No.
From Ibn Abbas from.
Yeah, that's the next
No,
one.
it says only eating it is from. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's
I jumped ahead.
So this, just the point here about when Al-Bukhârî would narrate things, if he narrates it with the chain, so he narrates the full thing, that means he considers it sahih. And generally, except for very few small numbers of things, they are considered sahih. If he would narrate it as mu'allaq, so mu'allaq is a form of when you narrate a hadith and you would just say, so-and-so said, and you don't mention any of the chain, so you don't say from him, then with Al-Bukhârî, if he says it with, they call it sigat al-jazm, or with certainty, so he says, قال fulan, or so and so said, then we say that he considers this to be authentic because he's saying with certainty that this person said this thing. If he just says it's narrated from somebody, then that's a different issue and we have to go into it. So here, with the statement from az-Zuhri about the parts of the dead animal, he narrated it as with sighat al-jazm, or with certainty. So he considered it authentic, and it was narrated with the full chain by Ibn Wahab. So this is authentic statement from az-Zuhri that he said this. And then he continues, he says, تصدق على مولاة ميمونة بشاه فماتت فمر بها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال هلا أخذتم إهابها فدبغتموه فانتفعتم به فقالوا إنها ميتة فقال إنما حرم أكلها. Or that from Ibn Abbas that the servant of Maymuna was given a sheep as charity, and then it died. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed by it while there were people with it, and he said, why don't you remove its skin, tan it, and then put it to use, or to use it? So they said, it is dead. So he said, only eating it is forbidden. And this is related by the group. And Ibn Majah, he says that it took place with Maymuna and her servant, so it wasn't with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says Al-Bukhârî and An-Nasâ'i do not mention treating the skin. So like we talked about last time, that some of the Imam al-Shawkani was the only one who considered the dead animals to be Tâhir, and this he mentioned the other hadith that we talked about a few weeks ago, I think, that the Prophet ﷺ passed by and said, why don't you use it or why don't you benefit from it? And then so they said it was dead, and he said it was only forbidden to eat it. So this extra phrasing from Imam Muslim is the evidence that, or one of the evidences that the skin from the dead animal is considered najas.
Sorry, so the group, they narrated,
yeah,
but only Imam Muslim has only in Muslim it has the part where the skin is about the skin.
Yeah, Muslim and some other ones, but Al-Bukhârî and An-Nasâ'i didn't mention. They just mentioned the part of the hadith where it says, why don't you benefit from it? And they said it's dead, and he said it's only forbidden to eat. So in that hadith there's no mention of the...
But it still gives you the same ruling in this sense, right?
Sort of, yeah. About the animal it does, yeah.
Yeah.
So then he says, it is reported that Ibn Abbas recited, قُلْ لَا أَجِدُ فِي مَا أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ مُحَرَّمًا عَلَى طَاعِمٍ يَطْعَمُهُ إِلَّا أَنْ يَكُونَ مَيْتَةً أَوْ دَمًا مَسْفُوحًا أَوْ لَحْمَ خِنْزِيرٍ. Or that it is said that Ibn Abbas recited the verse, say, in all of that what has been revealed to me, I do not find anything forbidden to eat, if one wants to eat thereof, unless it be carrion, which is the dead animals, or blood poured forth, or the swine of flesh. And then Ibn Abbas said, what is forbidden is the meat. As for its skin, the skin used for water skins, the teeth, bones, fur, and wool, they are permissible. And he says this is narrated by Ibn al-Mundhir and Ibn Abi Haytham, it should say. And so the full thing is Ibn Abbas said, قال الطاعم الآكل فأما السن والقرن والعظم والصوف والشعر والوبر والعصب فلا بأس به لأنه يغسل ولا شبابة وقال شبابة إنما حرم الميتة ما يؤكل منها وهو اللحم فأما الجلد والسن والعظم والشعر والصوف فهو halal. So he's saying that this Ibn Abbas is mentioning here that all that's forbidden is the meat, and that what's forbidden is to eat it, but everything else from the animal is considered Tâhir and permissible to use. As far as I've been able to find, this statement from Ibn Abbas is a weak statement. The chain contains Abu Bakr al-Hadhali, who ad-Daraqutni said is matruk. So meaning the statement from Ibn Abbas about everything being permitted from the dead animal, except for what is eaten, then this is a weak statement from him, so we can't really use it as evidence. And then he continues, so just some commentary on what the author mentioned, just to make it a little bit more clear. The first opinion is that the bones and whatever the ruling of what the dead animal itself takes. So if the dead animal is considered Tâhir, then the bones would be considered Tâhir. So for example, if we took an animal and slaughtered it the Islamic way, then every part of the animal is considered Tâhir, and you can use it. You can use the bones for whatever you needed them for.
If the animal itself is considered tahir before death?
No, when it's, when it's dead. When it's dead, so meaning it would have had to be in tahir while it's alive and then permissible to eat. So, or not permissible to eat, that it's been...
Just like a cow, kind of.
Like a cow, yeah, something...
Slaughtered in the right way, you mean?
Slaughtered in the right way, yeah. So that's the first opinion. And the second opinion, that's the first opinion, and that's the opinion of the Mâlikiyyah, the Shâfi'iyyah and the Hanâbilah. So they take that as long as if the animal is dead and it's Tâhir, then the bones are considered Tâhir as well. And if it's Najas, then it's Najas. So for example, if it's a pig, it's Najas. If the animal was hit by a car or died of natural causes or something like that, then the bones would take the same ruling as the whole rest of the body. And like I said, that's the opinion of those three madhahib, so except for the Ahnâf. And what they use for evidence for that is the verse about the mayta. So they say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid the mayta and later on mentioned that it's rijis. So everything that is mayta would take that same ruling, and because we don't have any evidence to say, well, the animal's mayta except for the bones, or the animal's mayta except for the hair. So they say, except for the bones, so the bones would take the same ruling.
What about the hadith in Bukhârî?
No, he's giving you the opinions now. So I have to give it the opinions now, so?
Opinion number one.
Yeah, we'll go into it, yeah. So
we'll
that's the
go
first
through it.
opinion.
Because he said there is no...
Well, that's an opinion. That's one of the opinions.
هذا رأيي يعني
Yeah.
مش الحكم.
It's one of the opinions.
Another opinion is that it's Tâhir, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it's. So any bones of the mayta, or the hair, or anything that's not, or the teeth, or any of these things, that they're all considered Tâhir. This is the opinion of the Ahnâf, and Ibn Taymiyyah took this as well. The only difference is that the Ahnâf say that the pig would never be najis, or would never be Tâhir. So every part of the pig would be najis, including its bones. So that's the second opinion. And what they use for that is they state that when we say something's mayta, it's because it died, but it wasn't killed the same way. Bones, they say in reality, they don't take the ruling of something that's alive because blood doesn't flow through it, except for, if we talk about the marrow and something is a little bit different. But generally, if they say that it doesn't take the ruling of the mayta because it's not actually alive. And they say because if we consider the skin that it's najas until we do the tanning, which takes all of the moisture away and any sort of things like that until it's completely dry like leather. So they say if this is the case for that, how about bones which to begin with are dry? If you took it as soon as the animal had died and you wiped it off and whatever, there's no moisture, they say, to begin with in these in the bones of the animal, and likewise the teeth and so on. And what they mention for that is that they state, so first of all, that it doesn't take the ruling of the mayta in the ayah, and then they mention that what az-Zuhri said. So az-Zuhri was narrating from the scholars that came from before him, so from the tabi'een and the sahaba, that they considered these things to be tahir, and they would use it for combs, and they would use it as pots to put oil in and stuff like that, and they didn't find any problem with that. Another opinion is that it's haram to sell, but permissible to use as for yourself. So they state that it's tahir, but it's also forbidden to sell. So who would know the evidence for that it's forbidden to sell? We talked about this, I think, last week or the week before.
Because it did, right? Also, the birds of Al-Bukhârî, so everything is haram.
No, but if we're saying it's allowed for us to use it though, but we can't sell it.
Because it's haram, laham is haram.
No, the bones.
The bones is tahir, you can use it.
But if we say we can't sell it, so this opinion we talked about a few weeks ago, what's the evidence for it? You were happy about what we talked about it, because it talked about another thing in it.
He's always happy.
عن بيع الخنزير عن بيع الخنزير الحديث عن بيع الخنزير.
الحديث والأصنام.
Yeah, the Prophet ﷺ forbids selling these things.
Yeah.
So they say that it's طاهر, but this hadith نهى الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم عن بيع الميتة والأصنام والخمر والخنزير. So this is the opinion of Imam Ibn Hazm. So he said it's طاهر, but we have a separate evidence that shows that it's considered طاهر, and it's
Isn't Amal al-Salaf, they used to use it?
They used to use it because that's the question. We know Mayta is Najas, right?
Yeah.
Are the bones part of the Mayta or not? That's what the whole issue comes down to.
Yeah.
Are they considered dead or they're separate from
That's my question. Didn't the Salaf use it?
Well, they used it, yeah.
And if there is anything wrong with it, I'm sure it would have been mentioned. You know what I mean? Like it would have been more clear evidence about this if they used it. It's like if it's everyday thing, they used it every day. So I'm
Whatever
sure
they
there would
used
have
it
been
for.
like any more clear evidence about it. Isn't it?
Could it be
What
okay?
if they used it from the animals that they slaughtered halal?
No, it's mentioned here. Like they use it from dead elephant or.
Yeah.
Could we say that then, for example, from this hadith where Rasulullah said only eating it is forbidden, that I could use any part of a dead animal as long as I'm not eating it, even the meat, if I could find some use for it?
But he said
Would
You
it be
could,
okay?
except for the
Specifically
hadith. The hadith shows that
No,
you have to do something
No,
with the
there's
skin,
one.
right? The skin you don't eat, right?
But then there's one. Sorry.
For a sheep, you don't eat the skin,
Yeah.
but you have to do something to it to make it طاهر.
But then can't you? Okay, sorry, just clearing something up. Is it impermissible to use something that's najis?
Yeah.
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 Oh.
So, and then there's a last opinion, and it's from some of the Malikis. They say it's najis, but when you boil the bones, it makes it طاهر. So they say it's the same as the
hide,
as tanning the hide, because
Yeah.
it takes everything off of the bone. So essentially, it's the same thing, and there's no real evidence for that. But it would come down to the reason is that you take all the meat off of the bone. So the next issue is using the fur and the hair and the feathers of a dead animal. So if it's taken from the animal while it's alive, that's considered طاهر. There's ijma' on that. There's a consensus that it's considered
You take the
feathers or the hair or the fur while it's alive.
Yeah.
So you pluck the feathers, or you shave you shear the wool, that type of thing. It's considered طاهر by ijma', and the ijma' was mentioned by Nawawi in Al-Majmu' and Ibn Taymiyyah in Majmu' al-Fatawa and Ibn Rushd in Bidayat al-Mujtahid. So this is while it's alive. When it comes from a dead animal, there's 4 opinions on this topic. The first is that if it's cut from the animal, that it's considered طاهر if the animal's طاهر, and najis if the animal's najis. So again, this comes back to if the animal was طاهر while it was alive, they consider najis while it was alive, they consider it najis. And this is the opinion of the Ahnâf and the Mâlikiyyah, and one narration from Imam Ahmad. Except for the Ahnâf, they make an exception to pigs. That it's considered طاهر regardless of whether the animal was najis while it was alive or not, except for the pigs. So they say, for example, an animal that is طاهر, then if it dies without the Islamic dhabh, then the hair is considered طاهر, and likewise if it's najis. So when you talked about before about the if you considered predators to be najis, then they would say, well, no, it's allowed because it's only the hair. The only exception they make to that is the pig. And the evidence that they use for this is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَالْأَنْعَامَ خَلَقَهَا لَكُمْ فِيهَا دِفْءٌ وَمَنَافِعٌ وَمِنْهَا تَأْكُلُونَ. Or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, the meaning of which is, and the cattle, He has created them for you. In them there is warmth and numerous benefits, and from them you eat. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the fur, or mentioned the animals from the an'am, which are like livestock, and He mentioned that we receive benefits from them, and one of them is warmth, and the warmth would only come from the fur and from the hides of these animals. And they mentioned in this from Surah An-Nahl verse 5, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاللَّهُ جَعَلَ لَكُم مِّن بُيُوتِكُمْ سَكَنًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّن جُلُودِ الْأَنْعَامِ بُيُوتًا تَسْتَخِفُّونَهَا يَوْمَ ضَعْنِكُمْ وَيَوْمَ إِقَامَتِكُمْ وَمِنْ أَصْوَافِهَا وَأَوْبَارِهَا وَأَشْعَارِهَا أثاثا ومتاعا إلى حين. So, and Allah, which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and Allah has created or made for you homes in your homes an abode, and made for you out of the hides of the cattle dwellings or homes which you find light when you travel and when you stay. So while you're traveling and while you're not traveling, and from their wool, their fur, and their hair, you find furnishings and articles of convenience and a comfort for a while. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned these things as being things that He gave us as a benefit. So using the hair from these animals for clothing or for shelter and for these types of things, that he mentioned that these are something that He gave us as a blessing. So for them to be considered najas, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they're a blessing for us, they say that this is something that's very unlikely. And then they also mention earlier, like we talked about the hadith from Ibn Abbas about the dead sheep, when the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا حُرِّمَ أَكْلُهَا, or all that was forbidden was eating it. So they say hair is not something that's eaten, fur is not eaten, feathers aren't eaten, so they don't take the ruling of the rest of the animal.
So it's okay for a dead animal?
That's the first, what the first opinion is. And they say that because we know that everything is tahir until it's proven najas, then we need a clear evidence for that. And they say that since there's a consensus that we know that if you take a part of an animal, like say the leg got cut off, or whatever got cut off from an animal while it's alive, we know that that's considered mayta, and it's considered najas, and it's haram to eat, like we talked about I think last week or the week before. So they say since this is the case, then we know, so we know if you take something from the animal while it's alive, generally it's considered najas. But we also know that if you take the hair while it's alive, it's considered tahir. So if you take it after it's dead, there should be no difference, because it would take the same ruling. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know but it does make sense, huh?
No, it's kind of confusing, so can you just repeat one more time?
Yeah, so what he's saying is, what they say is that we know if a part of an animal comes off while it's alive, so the animal's still alive, that part that comes off of it is considered najas, because it's considered dead. But at the same time, we know there's a consensus that if you take the hair off while it's alive, the hair is considered tahir.
Yeah.
So we know that it doesn't take the ruling of every other part of the body. So same thing when if it just happened to die, then sure we say cutting off the meat or cutting off any part of it would be najas, because it's mayta. But we know that the hair took a different ruling while it was alive, so it should be the same while it's dead.
Yeah, because it's not part of the body, basically.
It's not part of the body, and they say that it's not even mayta because it doesn't live.
Yeah.
If you cut someone's hair, they don't feel it. If you cut their skin, they feel it. If you pluck, but that's because of the skin though, right? It's because of the nerve. It's because the
every single year, like for the sheep, for Harâm.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
We use it for.
Yeah.
Huh?
Pillows?
Yeah. When you shave, have you ever seen a shaved sheep?
Yeah.
So
and the next opinion is that we say that the hair takes the ruling of the animal while it's alive. So if it's tahir, it's tahir, and if it's najas, it's najas. So they say it being mayta has nothing to do with it. They say if the animal's tahir, it's a cow, a sheep, a goat. If it's a chicken and you take the feathers or something like that, that it's considered tahir, even if it's mayta. And if it's najas while it's alive, like a pig or any other animal that you consider to be najas, like the predators, like we talked about, if you take that opinion, then it would be najas after it dies, regardless of that. And they use for that the earlier, like we talked about, that the animal itself is najas, so the hair would be included in that. And if the animal itself is tahir, then the hair would be included in that. The third opinion is that they consider all of it to be najas, except for the humans. So the human hair, if you touch someone's hair and it was a dead body and whatever, they say that this would be tahir. That's the only exception. And what they use and this is the opinion of the Shafi'is and one opinion from Imam Ahmad, and they say that we know that the mayta in general is najas, so they say the hair takes the same opinion, but we don't add this, or we don't include humans in this, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, or we have honored the children of Adam, so that they wouldn't be considered najas, and along with some other evidences that they use. So they make the only exception they make to this is the hair of the human. And the last opinion is that it's considered najas and tahir after if it was being the dibagh was made for it. So if you tanned it, then it would be considered tahir, and if you didn't tan it, would be considered najas. And that was the opinion of Imam Ibn Hazm. And the reason why he states this is because when the Prophet ﷺ said that in order for the hide to be used, it has to be tanned. So he knew that there was a hair on it, but he didn't make an exception. He didn't say if you have the hide you can use the hair but not the skin part unless you tan it. He didn't go into details. So everything on the hide would be considered najas until it's made, until the dibagh, or until the tanning was done. So this is the 4 opinions about the hair from a dead animal, which also includes fur or feathers. So what do you guys think? You can't use it?
I can.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we generalize the hair and all this stuff we're talking about, or should we treat them as separate things?
As long as it's halal. Not maita, not...
No, that's what we're talking about, the maita. Can you use the hair?
No.
Yeah.
No?
You can't use the hair of the maita?
Yeah, it's tahir no matter what.
Why can't you use
Like...
Use the hadith of the camel.
Khanzir, there's no hair, right?
Khanzir, there's hair.
There's hair?
Yeah.
For the khanzir, no. For the rest, yeah, for sure.
What about maita? He's talking about maita.
Oh yeah.
يعني عندك بقر.
Bakr, yeah.
Who didn't slaughter?
ما كانش
يعني
مذبوح
مات,
على
يعني
الحديد.
he's dead. You can't eat it now, can you use the hair?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, use the
According
hadith.
to yeah,
What's the people?
Yeah.
When these
All
people
over.
had like a camel, naqa, like as a gift,
No,
and
that's
she died of natural causes, and the Prophet ﷺ said you don't have to use
It's not an aqa,
a shah. Is it?
Kharoof.
Yeah, al-khuruf, sorry.
صح?
Jazakallah khair. He said you don't have to eat the meat, but you can use the skin. He didn't go. You can't use you can't use the hair of the skin. You can't. He just said you can use the skin. So we can say that you can also use the hair, because if it was haram not to use the hair, the Prophet ﷺ would have mentioned it, because he mentioned the meat was haram, صح?
except the...
So the hair would be.
Since
Allah
it's
Rasul.
a hard topic, this one.
Normally
Yeah.
that is just
Allah
it's
Allah
hair
Allah.
too, right? It's not like it's part of your body.
What's the strongest opinion?
Yeah.
That it's tahir no matter
Well,
what.
I get.
To me-
if
to
you
me
want to
that
think
it's
about it
tahir
that
no
way, it's
matter
gonna go
Yeah,
like
'cause it's
what we're
just
talking
hair,
about
right?
in bones.
Well, the reason
Like,
why
is
is
it part of
because
the body.
Yeah,
like we
yeah,
said,
you can
if a limb comes off of the animal while it's alive, it's haram.
Yeah.
But if the hair comes off, it's halal while it's alive. Like if you shave the sheep or shear it, you can use it to make wool and do whatever you need. So if it's dead, then it wouldn't make a difference, because if you're not allowed to eat the part that comes off while it's alive, but the hair is an exception. The same thing should be for while it's dead as well. So to me that seems like the strongest.
when it's alive, صح?
Yeah.
For example, if it would have been haram when it's halal, when it's alive.
When it's alive, yeah.
But it
If
doesn't
it's
mean-
haram.
Because the other part was haram while it's alive.
Exactly, yeah.
So and the reason why is because it's considered maita
Yeah.
while it's alive.
Yeah.
So the exception, that to me that seems to be the